wants to be a spoiler.
What is going on, Silver Squad? I'm RJ.
I'm Desiree.
I'm Hero Harrison.
I'm Gerald.
Yeah. So we're here today
to everybody's reaction.
Yeah, The Woman in the Yard.
Just take a long pause for a second.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I need a shot of Ensure for this. I mean,
yeah.
This is a non-spoiler review.
Yeah, it is a non-spoiler review, so fear not. Those of you who do want to go support Black films can still do so, and your viewing experience will not be altered because we're going to try our best to stay away from key plot points, and we won't reveal the ending. But yeah, so when you watch it, just know it's of your own accord, because yeah. But
So being a Blumhouse film, I definitely expected a little bit more than what I got.
Yes.
I spent probably 2/3 of the movie waiting on something to happen. I mean, there were things, but there was not a lot of. There was a lot of what they call that? A lot of sizzle, but no boom.
A lot of suspense building.
A lot of sizzle, no boom to me. So I spent majority of the film just waiting for something to happen, and every time I thought it was there, it wasn't.
This movie, like Gerald said, unfortunately felt like a Michael Bay movie without explosions. It really was just dry. I did not like how the pacing was okay, but I still think, like Gerald said, it was a straight line. There wasn't no like hump, like something exciting happened. It was just like a straight line. It was like, okay, we're waiting for something, and fell a little short.
Yeah, I felt like the movie was just okay. I won't say it's like horrible or anything. Had they advertised it as what it was versus selling it as a horror, or even like a psychological thriller, I guess maybe minds would have been changed. Unfortunately, though, because they sold it as a horror, promoted it as one, people were expecting to get that.
Yeah. No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I feel like a lot of movies do this thing where they kind of catfish you in the trailer. Same thing with Bring It On. The Clovers were throughout that trailer for Bring It On, and we thought this was a Clovers and whatever Toro's movie. And then you go to see the movie, and the Clovers are in the movie a fraction of the time. There were more scenes in the trailer than there were in the movie. They shot fake scenes to boost the, to make it appear like they were in the movie.
Cutting room floor stuff.
Yeah. And to your point, like, I feel like had they been transparent, they wouldn't have got the reception for this movie that they got. And that's not to take away from the cast, because the cast to me is the best thing about this movie, hands down. Even the kids, and y'all know kid actors.
Oh, I had questions, sir. I was wondering.
But they did well.
I said this to myself. I said, now, this is just my opinion, but I thought RJ was going to be like, I hated that little girl.
No,
I'm not gonna lie. I was like, he's gonna say he didn't like the girl, because I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't a fan of hers.
I liked her.
I struggled because I think her, to me, and obviously she's young, but her performance was cue card to me. It was a little more cue card. It was like almost like they were kind of like dragging her along, because obviously she didn't understand what was happening. And it was from a pure standpoint. I'm not, no knock to her as an actor. However, I struggle with her because everything was like really just.
Was it the characterization that maybe?
No, I just think it was her. I don't think she completely understood her importance to this story. I know she was a character, but I don't know that it was even at a point to connect exactly to what she was supposed to be doing.
You know what, Gerald? I do agree that to an extent. I also want to say that I think that the writers, honestly, it's hard to say, I guess, in this situation too, but I feel like that they didn't set her up. I feel like they could have set her up for something a little bit more sinister.
Well, but I don't want to compare her to anybody specific, but I've seen kids in these types of films and they've been great.
And that's my point.
I had a hard time believing.
I don't think anything was written for her though. I feel like you said, she was written to be the cute little kid, and the teenage boy was really written to be like, I guess part of the protagonist. From a standpoint, it was written to be really involved. Where she was written to be taken care of. She was written to be.
I got you.
Yeah, she was written to have any kind of real impact on a story other than being something that needs to be protected, because the boy didn't need to be protected.
He was to me Tay was the audience. He was saying everything that I was thinking. He was saying everything that a person would be like, okay, mom, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Like he came up with all the ideas, So that's where I mean, like I said, I didn't hate her. I just didn't feel like she wasn't doing it for me.
Okay. I liked her character. Mostly because from an acting standpoint, she worked with what she had as far as the writing. I think it falls back on the writing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But her reactions, acting is more about your reactions, to things than it is the words that you're saying. And I thought she did a great job with her timing. She always looked confused. Yeah. The way she looked out the window and saw this not old woman, but this woman in black sitting and everybody knew that there was something wrong with that. But I feel like her reactions the whole time would have actually been like a real reaction that a real little girl would have given outside of a movie circumstance. And then also how she was kind of used as, I think in most movies, little kids are used as manipulation tools, unfortunately, in order to get to, the said main protagonist. And I think that this movie was probably no different with having her in it.
Yeah. I feel like she didn't ask enough questions. I guess maybe because that's what made me feel like she was less of a kid and just like a prop. It was like, because kids are going to ask questions. I know how my kids were. They ask question after question about questions, and I'm just like, okay, Daddy doesn't know the answer to that. Like I don't know. So and at a certain point, even with the there was a scene with the writing. I thought that was going to have more like to it, and I just kept saying, okay, I'm waiting on something to happen.
You thought they were dropping breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Normally when they focus, and that's something I didn't like about the movie too. I feel like the things that they focused on that were bigger plot points towards the end didn't really give you enough time to realize that certain things mattered. And then when the end came, like you kind of caught it, but you kind of had to do double work in your brain by recalling something that happened earlier. Not to say all recalls have to be obvious, but I just feel like they just didn't really do a good job with like making things matter in the long run. Some of the continuity just kind of like I didn't understand towards the end. There was a scene without revealing. There was a scene in a particular room where they were all in, and things were just getting chaotic. But the way it was shot with the flashing lights and things like that, I didn't know what was going on, and not in a good way that makes me kind of like more invested. Like it's more like, well, I don't know what the hell's going on, so I'm just gonna sit here and let the rest of the movie play out.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, is because the line of continuity was already doing itself no justice, because again there's some points where I feel as though that were pretty basic, like we already knew the answer to. It's like, but they try to make it seem like something big was going to happen, but then it's like, oh, okay, that was what I expected. But that was in every single scene. There's no to me, there's no twist or something that was gonna jump out or anything that was kind of like, oh, that's a shocker. I didn't. And like RJ just mentioned, as far as like making you think twice, they made you think like way too much about if this connects to that, but it's not. But it's one of those movies that you had to think a little too much, but you know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's probably like, because it was too long too,
Yeah.
Having that recall and the movie be longer than what it should be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was tough though, because it wasn't super long though. It was only like,
but it felt long.
It felt long though.
Yeah, they dragged it.
And I think that's what the issue is. It felt long, and I think it felt long too because they were trying to be too. I don't know if meta is the right word to explain, but they try to be too like, I guess, artsy with it towards the end, and rather than just giving us a literal story like point A to point Z, they try to do like this weird metaphorical thing without revealing the ending. They try to be metaphorical in the end, and I feel like when you have a movie that is based in, for lack of a better term, reality, you can't be metaphorical during the last act. And I think that's what happened with the platform 1 and 2, where it's like in the beginning, you're literally put in a situation, and towards the end, as you're trying to get out of the situation, now everything becomes a metaphor rather than just showing the people getting where they need to be and getting out for the platform. And I think that's the same problem One Woman in the Yard had. They just didn't stick to the literal, like, are they going to die? Are they going to get escape? Are they going to escape? What's going to happen? They tried to, deliver a message. That's what it was.
Well, they never established what the rules were. They never established that.
Yeah.
There you go.
So they left it for you to kind of piece it together. And the issue is those pieces didn't fit.
And you know what's the problem with that, Gerald? You know what's the other problem with this too, as far as like the cast is great. I want to say that. Like I thought that RJ mentioned that offline, but also is that you have a small amount of a cast. Like you don't have that many people in this movie, so you have a lot of time to do things with this.
And they got to do a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like because again, without spoiling some things, I think there's a part where with her family and stuff that she talks about as far as what happened in the past, but yeah. So I think that part was, again, that's the more basic part that we saw that didn't really reveal anything that was like outstanding, or like, because I thought there was gonna be like a twist with that part, something more deeper, but there wasn't really like anything that was deep within that story, in that part at least, that could have been something that could have led to something a little bit bigger, I think.
To be honest, that scene didn't tell me anything that I wasn't already thinking in my head. It was already inferred, and so when we got the reveal of what happened on that evening, my wheels had already been turning. And when they kind of showed them, when they had that discussion between the mom and the dad had that discussion, it really didn't. Flashbacks is supposed to make you go, oh, that's what happened.
Exactly.
It didn't.
Exactly.
It didn't.
Yeah, it was almost as if they didn't know exactly where they wanted it to go. But outside of that, I would say the visuals were stunning.
Yeah.
I don't know what camera they used. It was probably better than like just an average black box, but my God.
Yeah.
Even when they were sitting in the yard, those shots were beautiful.
Yeah.
I will say how they like use like the certain parts, again, without spoiling it, of how like they kind of choreograph certain parts within like how she was in another like part of this of herself. I thought that was kind of cool how they did that.
Again, a lot of sizzle.
But no, Gerald's right.
I was waiting for something. I was like, okay, this is okay. I like that piece. It put me in the mind of remember Dead Silence?
Me and Jay were talking about that.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, I see what they're doing here. They're kind of figuring out a way to, like, they're gonna scare you, but they're gonna scare you in a way that you're gonna be like, oh no, I don't know where it's gonna come from, Yeah. And I was like, good, Mary Shelley, and they're like, no.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
Somebody had asked me, there was like, so is is what happens in The Woman in the Yard is the same thing that happens in the others? And I said, you know what? Had it been something like the others with that ending, I would have been okay with it.
The others was actually
like, oh, okay.
That would have actually, because it would have been I think if nothing else, that would have offered us a little bit more closure.
Yeah.
Now, it might have been sad, but it might have offered some closure.
Yeah. I will say there were some parts in the movie that did, kind of sit with me as a woman, as a Black woman, just, these things being on the edge of your mind. And that's why, mental health is super important. I see what they were trying to do here. Unfortunately, they didn't execute the way that they wanted to. However, I think that the antagonist they chose for The Woman in the Yard was a really great choice. I felt like she was menacing.
Yeah.
And I want to see her in an actual horror film. I think she could deliver in an actual real horror film.
She was terrifying. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I would have definitely folded. Yeah, I would have just, I'm out.
And tall as heck. You're like, okay, I'm about to get on my knees. Please, mercy.
and like she said, I think that it's just too bad because, I want to like this movie, but it's just the cast is great, but you gotta deliver in certain areas, and the story for me was such a great cast. It's just too bad, it just didn't deliver.
Yeah, this was a writing issue.
Yeah.
This goes to show you that, Hollywood, y'all need to start making better stories with real purpose, deliver, execute.
Yeah.
And what RJ said too, don't try to do anything like extra. Just tell the story. Don't try to like put sprinkles all over it. You just tell it like it is.
And I think that, like I said, we were all really excited for this movie. I know when the trailer dropped, a lot of black people was like, "What? Black people? Horror?
Oh, I was there for it.
We were sold, man. I bought a ticket. I'm cheap. I bought a ticket to go see this movie. Like, that's what I'm more mad at. I ain't even go see the Keke Palmer and SZA movie.
Right. But I wasted my dang pretzel bites for my frosting.
Like, listen, y'all. I had my day that day was insane. My back was thrown out. I had a dentist appointment. I had to clean it. My mouth was numb, so my mouth finally got unnumb, so I can go eat my all-you-can-eat sushi. Then I got there, they got my order wrong, almost knocked the table over, and then there was people in there singing Mary J. Blige behind me that was next, just being completely rude. But I was like, hey, I'm about to go see this bomb-ass horror movie. I'm gonna be good. Not get there, sit down, leave thoroughly disappointed. When I tell you,
you had a day.
Loved it. And then my mom calling me with drama and stuff. This is not the day. I just got out of one of the worst movies I've seen in a while. Like, we're not doing this today. Very disappointed. We were rooting
you off too.
We were rooting for you.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
You had a terrible day, sir.
Yeah, you did.
I hear that, man. That's
weekend.
Rough. That's rough.
Well, I won't rehash my whole thing. My brisket was good, that I enjoyed while I watched it.
Well, at least you had a brisket. Good brisket.
Yeah. So yeah, I was I definitely had high expectations, and I definitely steered clear of any kind of speak prior to going in. And so while I was watching it, I kept saying, okay, well, Act 1 was a little, okay, it was kind of soft. But I think that's where a lot of the dragging happened, because they started out on this weird space where they were trying to like force you to get to know these characters in a way that was just so boring.
Yeah. I think you said that well, because again, it did feel like we were forced to know these characters because we were on this property, we were on this land, we were in this one place. It was just these only people right here in this setting. And it's not that things have to happen outside of that, but character development is important. Getting to know a character is important, not just about connection, but also for the story to go somewhere. And that did not.
It didn't go anywhere. Like I get it. Act 1, the introduction, we have to kind of set up the world. But to your point, Gerald, I think you mentioned it earlier, they never set the rules up. And I think that was a big problem, because when you introduce the character and you introduce the antagonist, the villain, the actual quote unquote horror, the rules should have been introduced. Not like I say the rules should have been subtly introduced, and it just was a big, confusing, disappointing, for lack of a better word, mess of an ending.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So I did, once I really pondered what I watched, I did get it. The phrase "today's the day." That phrase, so it's crazy. So my wife's a therapist, and she works with all kinds of clients, and so when she told me this story one time, and I can't really go into it without spoiling this movie, so I won't. But I when she said, when the phrase "today's the day," when I really thought about it, I understood what the third act meant.
Yeah.
So did that make it better? No, not at all. However, that phrase in itself means a lot different now. And just like at work, I don't like when people use the phrase, when you say, "Hey, what's up? Good morning," whatever, and it was like just another day in paradise. I want to choke people when they say that phrase. Because this is not paradise.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Coming back doing the same thing for some little crumbs is not paradise.
Thank you.
I love that. I don't know. I like it because it's. I mean, as long as you use it, and for me, I would say it sarcastically.
Well, but when they say it, I know they're saying it sarcastically, but it's a trigger, because working in HR, seeing what people make, understanding people's lives, knowing that I gotta help people in other regards, and I know like it don't mean the same thing to me because I know the other side, what the back behind the curtain looks like. So going back to that phrase, it means something different, and that's why I feel like if the movie would have done something different, I wouldn't necessarily change what they tried to show. I would have done something more more tangible to like create what you told me you were going to give me. If you're going to give me horror, give me horror.
And you know what I'll say too to this. There, because after I saw it, because I wanted to, you know how you got to see if you tripping. So I went and I just watched some reviews and out of the theater reactions, and most people had the same reaction that we had to it. A lot of people actually, but then there were like 2 or 3 videos I saw where they were like, well, if you didn't like it, it's because you just didn't get it. It's like how everybody didn't get us. And it's like, no. We got it. We got a woman in the yard. The woman in the yard. We just didn't like it. So we understand the themes. We understand thematically how everything unfolded, why it had to end, how it ended. We just didn't like it because that's not what we were expecting.
I agree. Yeah, the movie's bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it just goes back to the way they were trying, and the style in which they promoted the film in the trailer, what they were trying to give us, and even incorporating today's the day. I think if you didn't want people to think it was a horror film, change that up and just say today is the day. That's a different tone. Exactly. It doesn't say like, ooh, yay, horror. It says, ooh, something's about to happen, but you're not selling it as something that it's not. That's the most important thing.
100% agree, Desiree. Today's the day. To me, it was when you get to this third act, it might be divisive, but we gave you some stuff, and that's not what happened. And so it was a struggle for me because I was just like, you can't keep us on the hook for this runtime and these long drawn out scenes that had no payoff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I think, like you said,
and Gerald said it the best though.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Archie.
No, go ahead.
He said the best, Gerald, because as far as like when we got to like towards the end, it's like they gave us something, but then it's like they went like this, and we were like, wait, hold on.
Right.
And then so that's the problem I think with not all movies, but I think a movie, if you're gonna do a movie like that, don't try to like make it a psychological, or as Des mentioned, don't try to advertise it, especially as a horror. My goodness. Because that's the foolery of all of it, and then look at us. We went to the movie to see it, and then I think that's the mistake though, because I don't like when trailers do that. Yeah. I think trailers really need to find
Stop doing that. Like, it's like downsizing went a completely different direction. Like in the third act, it stopped being about people going from regular height to like miniature. It was a whole different movie in the end. Like, that's not what I came here for. So all in all,
had the ingredients. They had the ingredients. It just didn't taste right, unfortunately.
Right there. Instead of putting it at 350, they put it in at 750 max, like and torched it. It could have been
crispy
better.
on the outside, all the way underdone on the inside.
Yep. Unfortunately,
it could have been better. So let me ask y'all this: do y'all want to do scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10?
1 to 10.
Okay.
Okay, 1 to 10. So
4.
Ooh.
I'm gonna give it a 6. I can look outside of the way that they tried to promote it. I'm giving it a 6 because I think the potential was there, and I also think this is the stepping stone for better film. Sometimes you have to try things, learn from it, and it's like, okay, move on, we'll make something better.
Okay. 5.5. 5.562.
Okay.
Decimals is killing me.
Yeah.
I'll say I'll meet y'all in the middle, but I'm gonna give it about a 4.8.
Okay.
Because kind of, Desiree, you made good points to kind of steer me off of the ledge of it just being a complete disaster. Mm-hmm. However, I think just even on a simpler level, they could have changed a couple things, and it could have easily been a 7. honestly. Like the ending itself, you could have created something super divisive, or you could have done something super divisive, but it would have completely given people at least something to talk about for real, like not stick on all the negative things.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
That's fair. That's fair.
So we encourage y'all to continue. Like, look, if you want to see the movie, please go and see it for yourself.
I encourage you to go see it. Go see it.
Yeah, please go and see it.
Support Black film. We did,
right?
You know, and I feel like even if we saw the reviews, we still would have went. You know, because we support Black film. So and that's not to say Black people have to be perfect. Our films don't always have to be, you know, top notch. Like white people make films that are bad all the time. You know, and they still get support. So even if the film is not well received, let's just go ahead and, you know, support, you know, put money in these people's pockets so that way they can keep, you know, supporting Black films, because it's important. Black voices and Black stories need to be told, even if they're not told in the avenue in which we would prefer. So, but yeah, that is our review of The Woman in the Yard, which is now playing in theaters and will probably be streaming soon. Make sure you check it out. Later days.